and welcome back to Classic Gamer 74. I'm your host, Anthony Gamer, and in today's episode we're going to discuss the Bubble Bobble games. Now, the original Bubble Bobble game was released in 1986, and it was created by a gentleman named, and now I'm not going to I'm going to mess this up so bad, and I feel bad when I mess up people's names. Mitsuji was his last name, and he worked for Taito, and when he created this game, he had an idea of creating a game that could be played in arcades and would be appealing to women. In other words, he thought of this as a date game, become very popular in Japan and in Europe. It's a two-player. It can be two-player co-op, which again was the idea itself. And it's a really fun game. Unfortunately, it's not that big on this side of the pond, and I'm not really sure why. I believe part of the reason was that it was released in '86, just a couple years after the, as other people have called it, the American video game crash. And therefore, video games didn't kind of have a resurgence on this side of the world until the Nintendo Entertainment System was released. Of course, that game was ported for that, but anyway, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So, what we're going to talk about today is the original Bubble Bobble game and the many sequels that came after it. So, without further ado, let's get into the games.
Okay, in this game, each player takes control of these two bubble dragons. Their names are Bub and Bob. Now, you're moving around these platforms and jumping around, and you're blowing bubbles at these enemies. When you hit them with the bubbles, you trap them, and then you burst the bubbles with your spiny back. The bubbles can also float around for a time before bursting. You can jump on them, allowing you access to other platforms. It's really a lot of fun. And also, after you pop the bubbles with them in it, they turn into different types of fruit and fruit snacks. Really a fun game overall. It's a game I discovered a little bit later on, like a lot of people in America. Like I said, it wasn't a big hit here, but it actually became Taito's biggest arcade success. It received critical acclaim, and it's considered one of the greatest games of all time, and it has been ported 30 times. That's saying something. Definitely making it one of the most ported games of all time, and like I said, a big financial success for Taito. Actually, MJK, which is the nickname of the creator, had hoped that this game would actually revitalize Taito, as they kind of were in some financial trouble at the time, and the gamble paid off. Now, I'm not going to discuss the ports of this game here. I'll probably have a separate AVP episode where I do showcase them. But probably the most well-known and most successful port has to be the one for the NES that you're looking at here. It's definitely the version I played first, and some friends of mine. Speaking of a friend of mine, a buddy of mine named Andy just became obsessed with this game. He played it one time, and then he just kept right on going and going. I believe there's 200 levels, and I think he's one of the only people I know that actually beat the game, but he just lost his mind when he played it, and rightfully so. I found myself playing this game for hours on end and realizing, oh man, where did the time go? It's just one of those games. And of course, when a game is successful, they're going to make a sequel, and you're looking at it here. It's called Rainbow Islands, the story of Bubble Bobble 2. It was released about a year later. And in this game, you are once again taking on the roles of Bub and Bob, except for this time they're in human form. Yeah, and instead of blowing bubbles, this time you're using rainbow power to get to the top of the screen and to fight your enemies. This game itself was also very successful, and it would be the last game that MTJ created. Again, the original arcade version has the song Over the Rainbow in it. Which of course the ports don't, for obvious licensing reasons. And what this is the extra version that you're looking at here. This has different additional stages and enemies, bosses. It's pretty cool. Now, the game itself was a commercial success, much like the original Bubble Bobble, and it was also ported out to several computer and game systems. Now, the third game is also quite interesting, and that is Parasol Stars. This one never got an arcade release, it went straight to console. Now, in this game, you take on the role of Bubby and Bobby, again, still in their human forms, and you're trying to save the universe with a magic umbrella. This powerful parasol puts the elements themselves at your command. Shock the tonnage out of whales with lightning, fry the feathers off the crazed, beady-eyed birds with fire, or down the demented dinosaurs with a tidal wave of raindrops. And again, this one only got a console release, and the version you're looking at here is for the TurboGrafx 16. It was pretty well received as well, but not as successful as the previous two games. Alright, next up we have Bubble Bobble 2, also known as Bubble Symphony. Yeah, I know that the order gets kind of confusing, but just stick with me. So you're back to being Bub and Bob, or Bubblim and Boblin. You also have two female dragons with you, Kululin and Kororon, as once again you are battling the forces of evil. This is quite similar to the original Bubble Bobble games. Really a fun game. This one actually came out in '94, so there was a little bit of a break between the games. So it was known by both Bubble Bobble 2 and Bubble Symphony. And it was only ported out one time, believe it or not. And that was for the Sega Saturn. You're looking at that port right here. Unfortunately, it wasn't released here in America, but, there are ways to get, such games. But anyway, it's a great port of this already great game. If you get a chance to get this, if you happen to have a Sega Saturn or some other way, I highly recommend giving it a try. And next up, from 1996, we have Bubble Memories. This was an arcade exclusive. It was never ported out, except it did appear on a couple compilations, but as an actual game it wasn't, which was kind of a surprise. I figured, Saturn may have gotten it or something, but regardless. Now, the story is pretty much the same in this game, except for the ultimate goal is to turn Bub and Bob back into their human forms. And you have your boss fights, you have your bubbles, beautiful graphics, nice backgrounds. A really fun game. If you can find it, I highly recommend giving it a try. And before we go on, let me mention the spin-off, and that is Puzzle Bobble. This was released in 1994 by SNK, the Neo Geo people, and Taito. And you probably know the drill with this one. This is one of those bubble pop games, and I believe this was actually the first game like that. If I'm mistaken, please let me know in the comments section below. Now, there have been several sequels to this game still being made to this day. A lot of them are on phones, other consoles, handhelds. Yep, this was quite a successful spin-off from the original game. And more than likely, you've played games, either this one or ones that were inspired by this. Now, I'll be quiet on the actual Bubble Bobble front for quite a few years. That is until a couple games were made for the DS. And the first one we're going to look at here is Bubble Bobble Double Shot. This was released in 2008 by Ignition Entertainment. Yeah, it's not bad. It's kind of like the original game for the most part. Although, to be honest, it's so hard. It's so small, even on emulation. But in this one, a new character is added. That is Boo Boo, their cousin, is back here to help Bub and Bob on their adventure. The game itself wasn't very well received. I don't really know why. It probably because of the fact that you got so much on such an itty-bitty little screen, but overall it's still a pretty fun game and does keep to the tradition of Bubble Bobble. So, in 2006, another game was released. This is Bubble Bobble Revolution. It's kind of an update of the original game. This was a DS exclusive. There's 100 new levels in this one, larger playing field, and there's new methods of attacking your enemies, like the rolling bubble, which lets your dino trap themselves in a bubble and bounce against the walls, knocking out any enemies. Awesome. Pretty cool game. Like I said, also not really well received. I think at this point, something new had to be done. But this would be the final Bubble Bobble game for many years, and some people feared maybe the last game ever.
After these DS games came out, most people assumed that the Bubble Bobble franchise was gone. That is, until 2 years ago when this little gem came out. And this is Bubble Bobble for Friends. The Baron is back.
Now, how this game works, it's kind of the same thing, except for this time you take on the role of Bub, or Bublin, and you are a stuffed toy in a little boy's room, and somehow during the night you and this evil wizard toy came to life, and you have to battle your way across the child's bedroom. It's really cool, and of course also the Baron, the evil villain from the original game, is back. Also included in this is the original Bubble Bobble, so if you want to play it on your PS4, you can. Really, the game is, I just can't find enough good things to say about it. The graphics are beautiful, the controls are smooth, you have new power-ups, you can do chain attacks. It's just amazing. And it's something new for those that are kind of tired, that are Bubble Bobble fans, but kind of are thinking things are the same. This is an amazing update that will appeal to a new generation of players, as well as those of us that played the original back in the day. So if you get a chance to get this game, I highly recommend it. Although it's a little hard to come by on this side of the pond, I got this on Amazon, and that was about the only place I could find it. So if you'd like to check this out, it is worth the look. It is worth the effort to find it, because it is a great game. In our next episode, we're going to begin our next unit, as we will be discussing the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System, and the Famicom.
Well, that brings this episode of Classic Gamer 74 to a close. I really hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, let me know by giving me a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. And don't forget to click that little bell icon down there so you'll be notified when I upload new stuff. Also, to let you guys know, please check to make sure that you're subscribed, as it seems like my numbers are a little off. I get new subscribers, but yet the numbers aren't changing or something. So please, if you are already subscribed, or you think you are, check to make sure. I've heard of YouTube doing this to other content creators before, so please check to make sure that you are still subscribed. Also, if you hadn't have a chance to check out my Patreon channel, please check it out. I got some really cool stuff on there you're not going to find anywhere else. And it doesn't matter what level of patron you are, you will still have access to some of the cool stuff on there. So please be generous and help me out on Patreon. The link is in the description below. So until next time, I'm Anthony Gamer. Have yourselves a great week. Stay cool, stay strong, stay happy, and above all, take care of each other, be kind to each other, and stop hate of all kinds. See you all soon. Bye, everyone.